20 years ago today, terror struck right over there in New York City. WSOU News is here in Liberty State Park at the Empty Sky Memorial. Here are some highlights of that event.
I'm a regular person. I'm not special. I don't have superpowers. I was a regular office worker that worked on the 29th floor of the North Tower on 9/11. And I heard a sound, a crash. And there were no bells, no whistles, no one saying where to go. I think we're all raised to think in an emergency there's going to be an authority figure with a megaphone or a big arrow saying, go here, go there. But in an actual attack, there's nothing. There was just a bunch of office workers looking at each other and saying, what was that? What do we do? And because it was 2001, our minds didn't go to terrorism. I often have children when I speak at schools say, well, didn't you immediately think you were under attack? And I have to remember that this generation that's here now doesn't know a world before the 9/11 kind of culture. As I went halfway down the stairs, I passed firemen with all of their equipment. And I asked one of them, after I kept seeing them back and forth coming up past me, what exactly hit my building? And they said a jet. As a born and raised New Yorker, I knew we were not in a flight pattern of jets, but again, it's 2001. I think it's an accident. And they kept saying that to me. I remember it vividly. Don't look up, don't look up. And I don't know if it's the rebel New Yorker in me or just human nature, but when someone tells you not to do something, you kind of do it. And I looked up and I saw giant panes of glass, and I saw paper and flames and everything unimaginable, 2 towers engulfed in flames. And yes, the thing we never want to think about, but we have to talk about because it happened, people jumping to their death on 9/11 in front of us. So I went to this apartment, I was there a few minutes, took off my shoes because they were wet, waited, and 5 minutes later I heard this sound of nightmares. And that sound was the South Tower going down. So we jumped out into the street, no shoes, no belongings. It looked like a blizzard. And the emergency workers in the streets had no idea where to direct us. They didn't know if they were sending us into an issue or out of an issue. I thought if I got to the water, I would be able to be rescued. And ultimately, after running through the streets, after having all kinds of issues, I got to the water and I was rescued by the New York Waterway Ferry. As horrible as 9/12 was, the day after, finding out what happened to people, 9/13 and 9/14 and 9/15 were just as terrible because we would see the people in the streets holding up the pictures. Have you seen my husband? Have you seen my friend? 9/11 tried to get me again last year, as Governor Murphy knows, when my 9/11 health compromised my lungs and gave me a really bad case of COVID. And as I told folks on that day in the hospital where they said, you're not going to leave the hospital, I said, if Osama bin Laden didn't get me, I ain't going from a virus.
Most important people here today, as Glenn mentioned, are those of families and friends who lost loved ones 20 years ago today. God bless the memory of those we lost, and God bless each and every one of you. A span of 20 years means that while so many of us were alive to witness the attacks and their aftermath, whether we watched on television or gazed across the Hudson River from this spot or stood in the streets of Lower Manhattan, there's now an entire generation for whom 9/11 is just pictures and words. You know, there's a saying that time heals all wounds. But of course, for every saying, there's an exception. And today is certainly one. Time may have dried our collective tears, but time will never erase the names and the stories of those we have lost. They will always be in our hearts. Their memories will live within us. And as we look toward the heavens, the sky will never truly be empty.
The question is, as we gather here today, is it going to be a routine day of annual reflection? Or will it be like Faith Miller and the New Jersey 9/11 Memorial Foundation and my almost lifelong friend, Brian Masterson, who's on the board, that it is not just a cognitive exercise, it's a moral mission as they continue the efforts to raise the money to finish this memorial. But what is the moral mission for all of us collectively It's to remember not just what happened to us, not just the planes and the destruction and the pain and the grief. No, what defines you in life is never what happens to you, but it's how you choose to respond. On what was one of America's worst days, we Americans showed our best.
Your grief and sorrow were felt in the halls of Congress. Your advocacy guided our efforts to fully implement the recommendations of the 9/11 Commission so that we could better protect our homeland and our people from future terror and tragedy. It was you who helped us write the Sadroga Act, named for New Jersey's own Officer James Sadroga, whose exposure to toxic fumes at Ground Zero led to the illness that took his life. And indeed, through that law and our continuing funding of it, we have to continue to stand by the first responders who now face devastating challenges, health challenges, as a result of their selflessness, and the family of those heroes who are no longer with us. So we will never be able to bring back what we lost on September 11th of 2001. But as we remember those taken from us, we have to remember the way we came together as Americans in the days that follow. I'll never forget the spirit of unity that brought us together in the wake of such evil. I'll always remember the morning of September 12th, when members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, gathered on the Capitol steps to sing, "God Bless America." As we raised our voices, we didn't do so as Democrats or Republicans. We did so as Americans, united in common cause against a common threat. So today, I ask all of us to do what we can to restore and renew that spirit of unity that we felt the days that follow. It shouldn't take an act of terror to bring us all together. Our nation faces myriad challenges today, from a global pandemic to climate change to the proliferation of terror and extremism around the world, and so much more. Yet all too often, when we desperately need unity, we constantly find division. I truly believe if we can harness the unity and renew the compassion we felt for each other in the aftermath of 9/11, there is nothing that we as Americans cannot overcome or achieve.
I think all of us approach this day with a humble heart. This is a powerful, powerful moment to be here. We know what happened right there. You know, there was heroes rescuing folks that took ferries over and ferried people back. So we remember, but as we remember the victims and the survivors and the families, we also have to recommit ourselves to the spirit of love that we all experienced then, people pulling together, looking out for each other. That's the continued moral mission that we have.
For Christian Gardner and John Makuch, I'm Veronica Gail, reporting for WSOU News.